Welcome to the 700 Club. President Obama has made his decision on a Supreme Court nominee to replace retiring Justice Stevens. He's choosing his own Solicitor General, 50-year-old Elena Kagan.
You know, Gordon, Kagan is not a judge and has so few legal opinions on record that critics actually may have a hard time finding things to oppose. And that's what the White House is hoping, as Paul Strand reports.
Elena Kagan is that rarest thing in these modern times, a non-judge nominated to the highest court. Much of her career has been in academia, like the years she spent as dean of Harvard Law School. President Obama may be figuring that'll mean little opposition to her and a relatively easy confirmation in the Senate, where she was confirmed just a year ago as his Solicitor General. She's seen as somewhat moderate, and so in replacing the liberal John Paul Stevens, might actually tend to make the court more moderate. If Republican senators go along with that thinking, it could help avoid a battle on Capitol Hill this summer while lawmakers are engaged in bitter election battles across the country.
It's in the administration's interest, and it's in Democrats up on Capitol Hill's interest to make this a much more smoother process.
Kagan served as a White House advisor in Bill Clinton's administration. Then as Harvard Law Dean, she waged one of her few controversial public fights, opposing military recruiters on campus because she so dislikes the military's refusal to let homosexuals serve openly in the ranks. But she's supposedly so quiet about her opinions, few know where she stands on many judicial issues. Attorney General Eric Holder thinks that will change during her confirmation.
She's done a great job as Solicitor General, the first woman to ever hold that job, the first woman to be the dean of the Harvard Law School. I think people will get an understanding who she is, what her judicial philosophy is.
If she wins confirmation, the 50-year-old Kagan will be the youngest justice on the bench and the fourth woman ever to serve there. She's also Jewish. That would mean when Stevens steps down this summer, it'll be the first time ever that there's no Protestant on the high court. Paul Strand, CBN News, Washington.
Well, for more on this story, Jordan Sekulow of the American Center for Law and Justice. He's joining us now. What do you think about this? Is this pick going to sail through the Senate?
It's likely that will happen, Gordon. What you have here is President Obama, I think, in a tough election year this coming November, did not want to battle this summer that was going to be a huge distraction for Democrats here in Washington, D.C. So he picked someone who's already been confirmed. Remember, Elena Kagan was just confirmed by the U.S. Senate last March. So she's gone through this process recently. 7 Republicans voted for her confirmation for Solicitor General. 61 total votes, only 31 no votes. So she'll go through a tough process at the Senate Judiciary Committee, but there's 12 Democrats on that committee of 19. So 12 Democrats, 7 Republicans. That's the first test she has to get through. And it just doesn't look like there's any way, and the opposition's just not there to stop this nomination. Of course, people are going to talk about her decisions with the military recruiters and those other issues that have come up, but there's just not a lot out there about Elena Kagan.
Do you see any possibility of Republicans trying to make political points here?
They're going to bring up the military issue. The fact that she tried to and did everything she could, including filing briefs, to keep military recruiters off of Harvard Law School's campus. You know, when you really think about that issue, people attending law school aren't 15 years old. They're in their mid-20s when they start law school usually. They can make a decision for themselves whether or not they want to talk to military recruiters. Even after the Supreme Court said you've got to let these recruiters on campus, she was telling students they should protest the military. That's going to be a big issue in her nomination hearings. But as we move forward, it's not as controversial as a pick as he could have gone with, and I think that's just President Obama dealing with the realities of the tough elections Democrats face.
Do you see her a lack of any kind of judicial experience here? I mean, she's got plenty of legal experience and
sure
has argued successfully in front of the Supreme Court as Solicitor General, but do you think the lack of judicial experience is going to hurt her?
You know, the last person who was nominated to the Supreme Court without any judicial experience was former Chief Justice Rehnquist in 1972 by President Nixon. Now, he was nominated as an associate justice on the Supreme Court, but he eventually became Chief Justice. It does make it more difficult for senators and for the American people to find out where she is on issues. I was reading through some of the information about her. She's only written 3 major articles for law journals, so that's basically all that's out there, and a few speeches she's given. And as dean of the law school, she wasn't taking very controversial stances. But I will say this. I know people that went to Harvard Law School while she was dean there. She was the first female dean of Harvard, the first female Solicitor General of the United States. And people said they may not have agreed with her on everything, but she was fair to conservatives, fair to moderates, brought some conservative professors in.
That seems to be one of the big things, that she's a reconciler.
That's her kind of motto, and how she's been cast by not just President Obama, by her peers. We're going to point out to everyone exactly where she is on the issue. She's going to have to answer questions, Gordon, that she didn't have to answer when she was before the Senate Judiciary Committee being confirmed for Solicitor General. And there's some on the left who don't like where she stands on executive power when it comes to the military, intelligence, and how much power the president has. She's actually a little bit more right. It's interesting. You have a lot of commentators on the left saying she's going to move the court more right. What I think is she's probably not as liberal as Justice Stevens, but he didn't start that liberal either. So you never exactly know how people are going to evolve on their time at the Supreme Court.
Well, is Obama secure in his nomination? I assume that one of the factors here is these two go back in time, and so he knows her.
That's right. I mean, they go back to University of Chicago days, Harvard Law School days. They've got a lot of the same connections. There's some interesting things about Elena Kagan that are going to come up. He's got a pick here which is not going to cause him a lot of political trouble, and I think that's why he moved forward with it. It's clear in Washington this is not going to be, unless something comes up that no one knows about yet, a huge battle here in D.C. I'm not even sure it will end up getting that much attention. We know that elections have consequences. President Obama is going to nominate someone who shares his judicial philosophy. There's more Democrats than Republicans in the Senate. They're the ones who have to control these votes, and this is not someone who is going to push the court left immediately. As it stands right now, it may be kind of a status quo issue, but we don't want to go so far as to say that these don't matter because it's Elena Kagan replacing John Paul Stevens. In reality, if she were to serve the same amount of time as Justice Stevens, she will be on the court until 2050. So when people really need to kind of take that in and to accept how long these Supreme Court justices can serve.
Well, she will be the youngest justice, and certainly a career of 40 years on the court is not out of the question.
No, absolutely not. I mean, you're talking about someone who is going to be on the Supreme Court for most of our lives, for everyone, including those who are younger, who are starting out their legal careers. And when we look at this battle here that's going to happen in Washington, D.C., or the confirmation hearings, I think everyone needs to look for a few main issues. One, where will Republicans go on the issue with military recruiters? Is that going to be enough to continue to have those 29-31 Republicans vote no on Elena Kagan? Two, where does the left go on the issue of the presidential powers, executive powers, military and intelligence powers? And then third, does she give any hints to where she is on other issues that she hasn't discussed yet? There's nothing about Elena Kagan we can guess about abortion and marriage issues and things like that that are very strongly written opinions that have ever been come out by her.
Well, we're going to find out a whole lot more.
That's right, exactly. We're all going to find out very soon.
In the next few weeks, we're going to know more about her than we ever probably really wanted to know.
That's right.
Jordan, thanks for being with us. Jordan Sekulow, American Center for Law and Justice.